Hello and welcome back to the GorillaBiker, and today what we're going to be doing is rebuilding this fork stanchion from the CB750, which is over there. This one's actually already been rebuilt. I'm shooting this in the future, the past. I'm from the future. I'm from the future. We'll be changing out oil seal, dust seal and bushes. Also did change out the damper bolt at the bottom, and obviously a new washer just to keep everything nice and fresh, because this bike deserves it. Why are we doing all this? Well, to prep it for sale. This bike is being sold this year, unfortunately. It has to be moved on in order to bring something else into the stable, and I like to sell bikes in the best condition that I can. So we've recently rebuilt the carburetors on this bike, balanced those. I'll be doing the rear brake, rear bearings. I've already done the front wheel bearings in the past. It has a new chain of sprockets, relatively new. And I've just rebuilt all of the front brakes as well. So it's going to be in good condition, and hopefully whoever gets it gets to enjoy it for many, many, many years. The one thing I will not be doing before I sell the bike is the rear suspension. Whoever buys it can do that if they want to. It wouldn't make sense for me to buy new shocks, but it probably could do with new shocks. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So there's a couple of things I'm going to be doing for safety, which is putting some jack stands underneath this, because my front stand doesn't actually lift this bike fully off the ground. What we're going to do first, remove these pinch bolts here. Then we're going to remove, well, not remove, just loosen these pinch bolts here. And then that will allow us to take out the actual, so this is just basically a lock bolt. And I'll be able to slide out the axle and remove the wheel. Once that's done, I'm going to try put the front stand in anyway, just as safety, because obviously we'll be sitting lower. So I'm going to lower it down onto the axle stands for cars, which are underneath the frame, and then I'm going to try put it up on the front stand. After that, we should be able to just go back to doing forks as normal, but that's the slightly dodgy situation. So then if you haven't done them before, you're going to loosen this bolt here, which will allow you to loosen your top bolt. We will have to take off these plastic covers, which I've never dealt with on a bike before, but I'm sure it's not that big a deal. We'll then have to loosen our windscreen mount, and then finally the last bolt we'll loosen when we're ready to actually slide the fork out is this one right here. Just a couple of other bolts I forgot to mention. You also need to remove these 5mm Allens to get your front mud guard out, and then you also need to obviously remove your caliper, which I forgot to mention, and just obviously be careful of your speed sensor when you're taking all this apart, because you do not want to damage that. As you can see, I hung my caliper from a bungee cord. But yeah, anyway, what I'm going to do next is be very careful dropping this bike down and getting some more support underneath the front, because obviously I can't leave that one there. I need the forks out, and then we'll work our way down. Okay, so the fork is out, and just so everyone is aware, this is a 14mm bolt and this is a 12mm bolt. Fork comes out quite easily. I do have it set up over here. As you can see, the top is some kind of Allen, which I'll tell you in a moment what it is. And that is a H17 Allen or hex, whatever you want to call it. So what I'm going to do now, as you can see, I have this kind of clamped in place just so I could loosen it, because I wanted to get it over here. This is the little plastic cap. So all I'm going to do now is open this off and drain it. I probably won't record that bit because you don't need to see it really. Okay, so as that drains, and this is how I like to drain these things, not so bad really. This came out quite easily. Now I did use, because I didn't want to reclamp it because I'm lazy, I did use Big Dog here. If you don't have a Big Dog, you can obviously clamp this back. So I would lower it down in this bike because it's quite tight in there. So I would clamp it back into the lower triple, and then lower it down a bit so you have space above it, and you can tighten that back up, that 14mm bolt back up, and then you can pop this off pretty easily. Other than that, we have a big spacer in there, and underneath the spacer we have a spring, which was wider coils out. That's always a question that gets asked. So as you can see, these are progressive springs. All that means is the coils get tighter as you move towards one end. And it's a long held debate which side should be up. I don't personally think it matters. But in this case, they came out the wider coils up. So that's what I'm going to go with. Going back in. And then underneath the spring, we had our washer. And that was it. So I'm just going to let this drain now. So next what I did is I just took out our damper rod, and this comes out like this, the spring on it here, your damper rod spring. How you remove that is by removing the bolt here. Now I again use the quick impact to get this bolt released. Sometimes you will have to put back in your main spring and your top cap and spacer just to kind of put a bit of pressure on this to stop it spinning to get it out. If you have any form of impacts, you can generally knock that out really quick, which is, you know, I have the impacts, I'm using them these days. I've made enough videos without using power tools. If you want to see those, they're obviously still available on the channel too, but it does help. So this is a 5mm Allen bolt here. Sorry, not a 5mm, it was a 6mm Allen bolt here, and we knock that out and then go from there. Just be careful, obviously, if you are taking it out like this, when you take this bolt out, your damper rod will fall. So obviously when I released it fully, I just kept a hand underneath the tube to catch that damper rod, because you don't want to get any of this stuff to get damaged. Literally any of it. It's all important. So yeah, that's that. Next I'm going to flip it over and we're going to take out the seals. Okay, so next what we're going to do is pop this seal out. This is just the dust seal. And these are they've all been in here quite a long time, so I might need to get something stronger. The problem with these seals as they get older, they get very, very tough. NGK. So I would wonder, are these original? It actually is made of like hardened rubber now, but anyway. So then you got to get out your little snap ring here. It's very difficult to show you the snap ring properly, but if you look, there we go. So if you look here, snap ring has a little wing. So you get your screwdriver in behind that, and basically you compress it. So it seals out, if that makes sense. So when it's fully expanded is when it's locking everything in place. Hopefully that makes sense. Once your snap ring is out, you're going to want to drive out your seal using your fork as a slide hammer, basically. Accidentally knocking things off my desk. This is fighting me so much. There we go. Lovely. So once you get this far, you can then slide your old seal up and off. Oh no! I'm not actually sure what this is called. I've always called like a backup washer or something, but obviously very important. It goes below your actual seal. Then you got your bush, which we're going to inspect and replace if required. So now I'm going to do lots of cleaning. Okay, so some tips and tricks. How I clean the inside of the bore of your lower fork lower is I actually get one of these magnetic grabber tools. I put a blue rag on the end of it, and I will just work it up and down like so until we end up really nice and clean inside. That's one little trick. Other than that, then we also need to obviously clean the fork stanchion. This is everyone's favorite part of the video when I do this, but you want to basically fold a piece of, 2000 grit sandpaper around it and just work your way up and down in a kind of a crisscross motion. Make sure you get all the kind of like little bits of rust and everything off it, and that you leave a nice kind of hatching in it, which has been told to me by a couple of suspension experts that the hatching ends up with to actually grab the oil basically and move it up and down. You don't want it a really highly polished surface. So that's all I do, is I get a nice kind of hatch into it, and I make sure that any bits that look rusty or just look, marked, I will clean all of those off. I won't make you watch all the cleaning. Then after that, I always try, if they're in any way the same price, I'll try to get the bushes and stuff from Honda. So I did buy these OEM bushes from Revzilla. They do the OEM parts. So the inner bush, outer bush, one of them. Inner bush is 51415 KCR003. There you go. You can pause it if you need to. Then this is the outer bush. I might have the names the wrong way around. It doesn't really matter. There's the number for the outer or inner. Honda Bush Guide Showa. Doesn't actually tell me which one it is. Outer or inner. Yeah. And then because I was there, what I will often do, if it's, you know, affordable, I'll actually replace the little damper bolt. And of course you have to replace your damper washer as well, which again, all Honda parts, just because when I was ordering a couple of bushes and stuff, it made sense. Stuff then that I'm reusing this time is the snap ring. I don't always reuse snap rings. The backup washer is what I call it. I don't know, is that the correct name? It's probably not. And then obviously I'm also reusing the damper rod, spring, spring, and the washer spring that goes, so this sits on top of here, like that. That's where that washer goes. I'll bring you through it when reassembling everything. And then obviously I'm replacing the seals and dust seals as well with all ball stuff. I'm not actually sure where I just put that kit. Actually, I think I ordered these somewhere else. I don't know where I got these. But it's that's what it is. You can probably Google that and find it if you need to. But that's my oil seals and also my dust seals. So let's get to reassembling. Actually, first I'm going to finish cleaning stuff and then we'll reassemble. Okay, so just to try show you the difference between the old and new bushes. All right, so this hand is the new one and this hand is the old one. This kind of grey coating is Teflon, I believe, and that's your actual bearing material. You can see the difference in color. This one's much darker because there's more material. I don't know, will you be able to see it, but I can actually see parts of the actual metal material shining through on this one. So these old bushes were no good, and it's honestly something that all too often gets ignored. Come on, you come in. Now that we've gone through that, to reassemble, what we're first going to do is put our bushes back onto the fork, just to have that ready. So with the, get out of there, with the inner bush, all you do is literally just slot it over and it snaps into place like that. So just be careful, your fingers, these are sharp. After that, we're pretty much ready to start dropping things back in here. You do need to do things one at a time. So this is your damper seat, basically, right? That's going to sit in underneath the stanchion like that. And then your damper sits onto that and bolts through it. The damper obviously goes into the fork. This does not go into the fork. So this you can drop just drop it in there and then convince it to go into place. Usually that works. Once you have that drop back in, you can drop back in your stanchion. Sometimes I get the order of things wrong, but hopefully not this time. Next, we're going to get our new bolt, which I will need a knife for since I have oily gloves on. I just nearly stabbed myself with Jerry Rig Everything's knife. It's crazy how many like really good YouTubers are. No! Really good YouTubers are out there. Maybe one day I'll match the likes of those guys. But for now, I'm happy to just work in my garage. So there's our new bolt and washer. And drop back in your damper rod next. And then I usually just try to get the threads started on this. You're not going to be able to tighten it generally, but you'll be able to start them, usually. Actually not bad. I'll tighten that up a little bit. And this bike is kind of mystical. I was able to pretty much nip that up all the way. Next, what you're going to want to do is seat in your new bush here. And to do that, you're going to use your backup ring. Again, I don't know, is that what this is called? But we're going to use our fork seal driver to push that in. 41 mil? Yes. So the key thing here is you want to kind of just be gentle with these. There's no reason to go absolutely crazy on the bush. And before we do our seal, so I'm going to do the seal the same way. We're going to drop that on, and then we're going to slide hammer it in. But before I do that, I'm going to cover this in red rubber grease. And we're going to put a little bag over the top of the fork to protect the seal. I use red rubber grease for everything, by the way. It's very worthwhile investing in some because you need it for doing brakes, for doing forks, everything. Give that a good little lubrication, put some onto the bag. And the reason for this is we don't want to damage your new seal as you slide it over the top of the fork stanchion, because those edges are kind of sharp. So the bag just kind of protects it a little bit. And you can push that into place. Now, I have been using these Motion Pro seal drivers kind of since I moved to America, and they're so much better than the old universal ones. Let's see, does that keep happening? So the reason I took that out of the vise is because this is a little bit more involved. So there is no way. Once you have your seal in, you want to put in your snap ring. Snap ring, I can usually snap these in mostly by hand, like I just did. You just push it in and then pop it down. And basically, I don't think you'll be able to see this, but I'll try. Okay, best I can do. Down in there, there is a little groove, right? Like right there, that the snap ring needs to fall into. And again, to get these out, you'd just pull on those tabs and you'd move your snap ring out. If you can't get your snap ring to snap into place, it means your seal is not actually where it needs to be. So basically, all we've done so far is just new bolt, new washer on the bolt. We've dropped our damper seat in here. Then we've dropped in our stanchion. Then we've dropped in our damper. Tightened up that bolt. Then we've went bush on the bottom of the stanchion. New inner bush here. And then we went new seal, new snap ring. And now it's time to pop in our new dust seal. You don't need to put any lube on this, really. I do, just because I think it would probably help the grease to kind of catch any dust that might get around it. And like, you don't need to worry about it. I put on plenty. You can always wipe it off later, you know what I mean? It's not a big deal. I have always put on plenty. And any fork I have ever rebuilt myself, I have not had fail. I usually also just kind of muscle the, that was dumb, I forgot to put my plastic back on. So now I have grease all over my fork, which is fine, it's not a big deal. A little bit of grease contamination is not going to do anything. So again, with that, you do want to make sure that your dust seal is seated all the way. And that's honestly pretty much it. There's not a whole pile left to do. What I'm going to do is drop back in our washer. You do want to have a look in there and make sure the washer drops in correctly, because sometimes it does not, like that time. And then we're just going to basically drop in everything else. Obviously we're not going to fill the oil yet, but what I am doing here is just making sure there's pressure actually on the whole assembly, so that I can make sure that bottom bolt, a damper bolt, is fully tight. So all I've done there is kind of dropped back in everything that needs to be in there. Put the top cap on so there's pressure against everything. And then just nip that bolt up. There is a copper crush washer, so you don't need to go mad. So I just realized my microphone wasn't turned on. So what I just did there was I filled up the fork with about roughly almost half a litre of oil, and then I suctioned back out enough with my Motion Pro tool to leave an air gap of 110 millimeters as per the manual. You do want to pump about 10 times in between just to fill it up nicely. It feels lovely now. And now what we're going to do is drop everything else back in. So one thing to be careful of when you're dropping this back in is you want to actually extend this out, otherwise you will overflow your oil out. Ask me how I know. I made that mistake the very first time I did one of these. And I will never forget that, so I'll never do it again. There we go. So basically, that's pretty much your fork rebuilt. And that's it done. What I always like to do when I'm finished is put it down on like the ground carefully and give it a few test pumps. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to compare that to the other one. But that's it done, rebuilt. Quite an easy fork to rebuild as everything goes. I would recommend, because these bikes are getting on in age, when you're doing this, do replace your bushes, because even the actual bearing material itself is kind of, it feels grainy. Like it doesn't feel like it's as smooth as it should be anymore, and that's probably just from age as well. You know, I'm getting on in years too as things go, and sometimes I feel a bit grainy. But especially this outer bush, like I said, I know you're probably not going to see that, but there is actually metal material shining through the bearing material, and there's not that many miles on this bike. There's only like, I think 25,000 now, so really not that many. But yeah, essentially what we replaced was the bushes. We also replaced a new damper bolt, new damper washer, new seal, and a new dust seal. New oil seal and a new dust seal, and obviously nice fresh fork oil. I'm really looking forward to giving this bike a test ride now and seeing how it feels. But yeah, that's it. Okay, so the first thing we're torquing up is our top cap, just because I put a pinch on this lower triple. I've not torqued the upper triple yet. This is 23 Newton meters, which, just to double verify it, because I've already done this off camera. So again, that was 25 Newton meters. The lower one is 50. The lower triple is 50. Let me just check. Lower pinch then is 50, and this upper one is 22. So we're going to do that lower next. So again, this one's 50 Newton meters. All right, that's that one done, which is actually heftier than you'd think. And then if I can fit it in here, I can't, so I'm just gonna have to guesstimate this one. This upper is 22. I know this will upset many people, but I have for many years not torqued the upper clamp bolt, because it's a pain to get a torque wrench into, and that's it. All of the lower bolts down here, look them up online. One second. Yeah, I don't have the specs for all the lower hardware to hand, so if you want them, look them up online or buy yourself a service manual. I highly recommend it. Other than that, that's us finished. I'm going to do the other side. I'm going to do the other side and put it all back together for a spin. One thing is as well, I did actually drop the front end by 10 mil, so this is 10 mil now rather than sitting flush, just to give it a try. So that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed the rebuild of this fork. Hopefully it was useful to you. The key things, I suppose, are 110 mil air gap and whatever fork oil weight you really want, to be honest. The manual specifies 5, I believe. You can go up like 20, 25, it's just going to change your response. Since honestly this bike is kind of set up more for like a smaller person anyway, just ergonomically, I think it makes sense to put in a slightly lighter fork oil weight, and just stick with the stock gap. Like I said, this is heavier, but I think with a lot of modern people in America who are not Japanese, 10 is pretty lightweight in this particular suspension setup, because it's, you know, old style fork, so there's not a huge amount of valving or anything going on, so the response is the response. So a little bit of heftier oil can sometimes help that. But yeah, if you watch, thank you very much for watching. As always, a very special thank you to all of my patrons. If this video came out before the video or explained where I've been and stuff, I apologize, but you'll have access to that, and there'll be a video explaining where I was and why I had to take a little break from YouTube. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. I'll try to remember to drop in a list of like torque values and stuff, just in case I forgot to say them. And yeah, if you watched, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. I really appreciate people who still watch this channel. I do enjoy making the videos, but people who watch and comment make it a lot more fun. So yeah, thanks again. Adios. Outro crew. If I was keeping this bike, I would have painted these. I know that question is going to come up, because every time I strip forks it comes up, why didn't you paint them? I probably would have actually gotten these ceramic coated if I had the garage space as well to leave a bike disassembled. It's funny because they're a weird finish. Like the outside is more polished, the inside is rougher. Just someone definitely tried to polish these before, because there's like old scratches and stuff here that someone probably scratched it up a little bit riding through some brush or something, and then tried to polish it out and gave up halfway through. So I definitely would have liked to get these like powder coated or something. That would have been cool. But maybe on the next rebuild, who knows? This bike was never really got a chance at a project. Just because, you know, I got it, realized it didn't really fit me as well as it could, and rather than throw time and effort into it, I went and got the V-Strom, which was a much better option. So yeah, but yeah, let me know, what color would you have painted these lowers if you could have? Bye, outro crew.